good afternoon. Really excited that we played well on Saturday. It was a really good game for us against a really good opponent. I was really pleased with how we came out and jumped on them early, had a fast start offensively, and got a good score, and then stopped them on defense, got a big punt return. We were able to get a nice lead and heading into halftime, and then I'm really pleased with the way we started the second half, getting the 3 and out, getting the big punt return, and getting the next score to go up to 28-0, and against a really good team. And obviously, it's not perfect. We have a number of areas that we want to continue to shore up, continue to improve upon. But we had a convincing 28-14 win, and it's just another in 8 one-week seasons, and that one's done. And now we have to move on to the next week without worrying about what you did the previous week, because we're going to a tough place to play at South Dakota. I think there'll be a big crowd there. Noise will be a factor, and we have to have a great week of preparation to play our best on Saturday.
Chris, where do you stand injury-wise when you found out from Saturday's game?
I think we came through pretty well, actually, on Saturday. A number of guys were beat up that probably won't practice today, but I think we'll have everybody that played on Saturday practicing by Tuesday, if not Wednesday. And I was concerned about Lance and Ty, and those guys came through pretty good, and Robbie came through pretty well. Felt better than he did the week before, so he'll probably miss a day and a half. We'll probably cut his reps a little bit, but I feel pretty good that we get through Saturday pretty healthy.
You guys approaching all of this, you're in that grind of the season now. It's several weeks. Are you guys starting to kind of rein it in a little bit at practice at all? Could it prevent some of those unnecessary injuries?
Well, anything's going to potentially happen, Beth. You just never know in the game of football, and some of the things that we've had happen have been pretty freak things in half, three-quarter speed drills. But in the same respect, we've stayed away from the season ending on a number of guys. But just looking back at our schedule over the last 7 or 8 years that I've been here, it's getting into game 8 that you do cut things back a little bit anyway. So beginning this week, we'll cut maybe 15, 20 minutes out of the 2 major days on Tuesday and Wednesday, maybe a little bit more meeting time, a little bit more walkthrough time, especially for those guys that have been 4 and 5 year guys here that have played a lot of football.
He was a practice injury last week, and what's his status?
We're hopeful for this week, but we'll have to see. It'll probably be Wednesday or Thursday before he's able to do some things. And once again, with Tut, it's special teams is the big focus for him, not necessarily as much on defense if Robbie is healthy enough. And really right now, James Hendricks becomes his backup as well as starting at free safety. So Jalen, James, and Robbie are the 3 safeties right now until Tut gets back. But kind of a freak deal with Michael, and once, whether it's this week, next week, I think it's within the next 2 to 3 weeks. But who knows? He may feel pretty good this week.
You mentioned on Saturday some true freshmen and I think a redshirt freshman that played special teams to kind of give some guys a blow. Is that going to be the plan going forward here, you think?
Yeah, right now it is. Mason Hofstad played on a couple of special teams for us, did a really nice job as a redshirt freshman. Destin Talbert did some really good things as a true freshman. We played James Kaiser on a couple of special teams. Jasir Cox we played as well. We're close on. I think James is the only one that's at the 4 games. We'll have a discussion with him and with the coaches this week. The other ones still have a game or 2 left. But if we still have these nicks and guys not being able to play on teams, then we're going to play these freshmen and play them all games on special teams. That's what they're here for, to play.
So highly of Strevler. What do you kind of see out of Austin Simmons from what he's been able to do this year?
It's the same offense, not as much running of the quarterback, obviously, but Strevler was so dynamic in that aspect. But he throws the ball extremely well. He is a mobile guy. He's just, it's hard to be Chris Strevler, but he's a real mobile guy, throws it well, has a really good command of the offense, spreads it all over the place. They have a number of guys catching footballs. I know the Allen kid's an exceptional player. They have a number of running backs, and it's a different offense to face when they're playing at home at their place, as opposed to, that was a tough situation. If you guys saw the film of their game against Youngstown State, it was 30-mile-an-hour winds. It was raining sideways. It would have been a tough day to throw the football. So we'll have our hands full because they're a really good team at home, especially.
Chris, how different are they? I know you alluded to it, that they still run the same offense, but there's only one guy who could run it last year. Are they even close to what they were a season ago?
Yeah, I think they're throwing the ball more. He's not tucking it and running it as much as Strevler did, but they're pitching it around a lot more. It's still the big fear that we have is the same thing that caught us in 2016 was the tempo got too fast for us, and we didn't adjust to that tempo very well that whole day. And it didn't matter who was playing quarterback. We didn't play very well that day, and we really took a valuable lesson that day and spent a lot of time in the off season, and that's the whole key again. You cannot be on your heels. You can't worry about what happened the play before, and if you do, you're going to get beat for a big play afterwards, and you see it over and over again, whether it's a connection or a near miss. After a successful play, they're going to get right back on the ball, and if you're not ready, it's going to go over the top of your head. And so I think the key for us defensively is to make sure that we can get lined up and to keep the play in front of us and not give them those explosives.
Something, has he always been like that?
I think Bob's done whatever his talent has allowed him to do. I know he did a lot of different things at Duluth, but playing indoors with the style of play that he would like to, with spreading it around and getting some really good skill kids and a quarterback that can wing it around, it's become what he has done since he's been there at South Dakota, even his last year at Western, and it's really tough stuff to defend because it limits your calls. Coach Entz, who knows Bob, he played for Bob, knows him well. It limits your calls a little bit more on defense because you have to make sure you can get guys lined up and make sure that your assignment's sound.
Did you play Hankey earlier than usual? Is he more in the Jackson Hankey?
He played a few snaps early on based on the personnel. We were able to get Dan a few plays off. When they had bigger people in the game, we brought Hankey in. Jackson would be more of a guy that can play in that 2 tight end package, 2 back package, try to get him out in some of the spread formations. But anything to try to maybe give Dan and Levi a little bit of a rest. When we lost Bruce, that hurt us on punt team because now Dan Marlette's the starter on punt, and that's a special team that you want to make sure that you have not only your best guys on, your most reliable guys that have experience. And so when Bruce left that team from the injury, we had to have Dan step up there. So then we wanted to try to get him a couple snaps on defense off.
I ask you about your guys' success in the red zone on both sides of the ball. Is that a result of so much senior leadership and experience, or has that been a point of focus for you guys?
Well, we practice the heck out of that, especially in fall camp, and do a lot of competition between offense and defense. And it's neat because I'm seeing more, like you guys are, of a lot of creativity on our offense of doing things. You can't just sit back there and throw the ball every time on third and 7. And now we've run a jet sweep. We've thrown it to Lance in the flat. We've run option. We've done a lot of different things. The field condenses so much that you have to be able to do some different things because defenses are either going to bring pressure on you right now and you get the ball out, or they're going to sit in soft zone. And we were able to see a soft zone with Dallas and hit them on the jet sweep. And then for us on defense, it's just one of those things where you just bend, but try not to break. If you can get a pick like we have in critical situations this year or force teams into field goals, those are big difference makers.
South Dakota has been sacked more than any team in the Valley. Do you think that's a product of just their air raid offense or weakness up
I
front?
didn't know that statistic. Every game's different. Maybe we won't sack them at all. I don't know. I mean, it's they're throwing the ball a decent amount, obviously, and they're trying to get a ton of plays. They're probably up there with South Dakota State, is my guess, as far as having as many plays per game. So then, obviously, your potential for a sack goes up, and they're trying to get 80-plus plays a game on offense, and they're throwing the ball an awful lot off of that. They've been down a little bit in a couple of their losses, which probably facilitates them getting into more 5-step rather than 3-step stuff. But, I always tell the guys what you did last week has no bearing on what you're going to do next week in this league. And if you fall in love with what you did last week, you're going to get beat. So we're going to wipe this one from Illinois State, and we've got to move on to South Dakota and have a great week of practice, or we're going to get handed to us on Saturday.
Is it me or is Jackson Brown almost around the ball on every kickoff coverage?
He is. We have some design things where we try to kick it to where he's at. Sometimes we're putting him in different places. We tried something different this week. We typically put it on a hash and kick it down that hash. This week we put it on a hash and kicked it away from that hash just to try to maybe mess with some timing of a kick return team. And Jackson Brown has been playing really well on all special teams, but kickoff in particular. And the other guy that I thought did a great job this week on kickoff was Adam Cofield. He was in on a couple of tackles, and then a couple of plays he took double teams out that allowed either JB or Josh Hayes to make a play.
What have you seen his evolution for Jackson Brown to get out there? It's a guy that I think you were counting out a little bit last year and got hurt to now be a big-time player for you guys.
Well, for starters, he sees the appreciation of special teams a la Chris Board. And we're always talking about Chris in every special team meeting we have, it seems like, because that was one of the most dominant special teams guys I've ever been around. Brian Shepard was pretty similar as well. And he sees that. He wants to kind of emulate what Chris did and be the captain of all those teams and be the leader on those groups. And he takes a ton of pride. He's one of our leading tacklers, and he's playing mostly on special teams. And then when we're getting up late in games, and this will be a game where I think Jackson has a chance to help us more on defense, just with the nature of the offense being more spread, not as many conventional 2 tight end sets or fullback and things. If they want to get into that, then it's more of a game for Levi and Dan. But if they're going to spread people and go empty or 1-back sets, then Jackson and Jabril may be on the field together.
You like the maturation of James Hendricks at safety, and how big is it for him just to kind of focus maybe on one area instead of having to play linebacker or quarterback?
Well, he's still focusing on every area, and then that's James, and that's that's why we call him Jimmy Football. He's one of the smartest kids that we have, and he played will linebacker last year against these guys. Last week he practiced at free safety. He practiced at strong safety. He practiced at the nickel spot. He could have been a backup linebacker had we needed. And oh, by the way, if something happened, he may have to go take a snap too. James is a great football player that's continuing to get better because the game slows down for him more and more each week. He's a real student of the game. He watches film religiously, trying to get keys and tips that not only that he can use, but that he can help some of the other guys that maybe don't see the game as quickly as he does. And I've been really pleased with how well James has played, and Jalen Wimbush has played really well too, and that's kind of freed us up a little bit more with Wimbush to be able to say, okay, we're going to get you some snaps at free, but now we can put you down as that nickel spot, and Wimbush is playing really high level at the nickel position too, so it gives us so much versatility having guys like James and Jalen.
Get a lot, Chris, with defense or offensive players that are able to play both sides of the football.
Do I see that? I'm sorry.
Offense, or you got a guy that can play offense, play defense.
It's really difficult. There was one other guy we were going to do it with a couple of years ago, and that was Bruce. And had we played Cal Poly in that playoff game, he was going to start at one of the safety spots with us because of his ankle at the time. It takes a special guy to be able to understand it, but it's a guy that's a football junkie. I'm sure Grimsley could do it. Robbie's a really, really intelligent guy. He could be one of those guys that probably could do it. But his ability to be in that quarterback room with Carson, Easton, Cole, and Coach Hedberg, which is a pretty doggone good room, has made him a much better player on defense.
The career of Nate Jensen.
Jens has had a terrific career. He's split time because we've been so blessed to have so many guys at that spot over his tenure here. He's learned so much from the Bonnets and Iliases and Connor Wentz, but I think his football his best football is still to come here this season. He's had a couple of games where he's had 3 or 4 balls thrown to him, and he's made impact plays. This was one of them where he had a number of third down conversions, but he's such a big target, and Easton has great confidence in him.
Is it on the depth chart? Is there any update on what his status is right now?
I just visited with him. He hasn't done anything yet, but I just visited with him before I came over here. He worked out and warmed up a little bit. We knew we weren't going to play him last week, but he worked out on Tuesday and Wednesday, did some running, and I thought he looked pretty good. Thursday, he was pretty sore, so we didn't do anything Thursday or Friday. He had a pretty good workout on Saturday morning, and then just did treatment yesterday, and he'll do some more treatment today. I didn't put him on the depth chart right now because I don't envision him playing more than Ty and Lance. But there is still, we talked, there's an opportunity for him if it progresses as well as we hope it does this week that he maybe could play. I'm also smart enough to know that this is still a marathon. It's not a sprint. And I want to make sure that when Bruce comes back, if it's this Saturday, great. If it's in 3 weeks, and I'm sure it won't be that long, that it doesn't occur again. And so he's a focal point of our football team. And Bruce wants to come back and not just be a spot player. Bruce, when he comes back, Coach, I'm going on kickoff. I'm going on punt. I'm going back on KOR and doing all those other things. So we need to be really smart with him. Bruce understands his body well, but we're going to make sure that he is at Mach 1 when he comes back.
Halfway through the league, did you get a chance to look where everything's at with 4 games to go?
You know, this was the first Saturday I didn't look at anything. I didn't have any family in town, and I went home and relaxed on the couch and I watched a little bit of Ohio State, Purdue. I didn't pay attention to anything until Sunday morning. It's probably what I thought. It's a little chaos in our league. It's 4 weeks in, and people think that that's, half the season. Boy, it's already kind of set itself up, and it's set in stone. It's so far from that. What's going to happen? I don't know. There's so many teams that are, whether it's us or you and I or a bunch of them that are 2-2 that are still obviously all in the league race. It just depends on, you better be able to play every game on Saturdays because we're beating each other up, which is not a good thing in the fact of, for at large, which is still a long ways away. But, I know you guys start talking about that because there's 4 weeks left.
Did USD grab more people's attention for how they played at K-State? I know that was week 1. It seems like it was years ago that say they may not drop off at all this year with Strevler being gone.
I mean, that game was a long time ago, and I'm sure there's been people banged up or things like that, but they played really well, had an opportunity to win. They probably should have won the game. I think any of those early season games, grab your attention when somebody plays like that against a Power 5 team in their house.
I don't know what Darius has done offensively, but what does it mean for him to be special teams player of the week and to do what he did for you guys last week on punt?
That was huge for us last week. He made the 2 big catches on offense in that first half, but to flip the field in a big game on special teams, I thought Coach Gazer did a really good job of designing some returns, and then the kids just battled. I thought we did a great. Jasir Cox made a couple of great blocks. Josh Hayes did. Robbie Grimsley did. A number of guys. Adam Cofield. There was a bunch of guys that made really good blocks on that to spring him on a couple of big plays. But we always talk every week that we have to be able to make one big play, explosive-wise, special teams, and we were able to make 2 of them, and those 2 I think turned into scores. And so, really happy for Shep. He's worked at it. He's the thing that people ask me about Shep, boy, what a great season he's having. I expected all this. I think that's the biggest compliment you can give Darius Shepard is we see him every day. I've seen him every day for 4+ years. The kid's a great football player, and he's stayed healthy this year. And knock on wood, we need to keep him healthy because he's a difference maker, and I've seen it every day for a long time.
10 of 16 on 3rd down. That's not bad.
That's really good. And we missed a 3rd and 2 that Mess is still kicking himself for. But that's really good. And I like the way we did it. We did a lot of different things, throwing a couple of big plays to Shep against some man coverage, to hitting Jens, to running Dallas on a jet sweep, to running Easton. I think you have to be able to do a lot of things on 3rd down and not just be, we're going to line up and go 5-step and let people tee off on you from a pass rush standpoint. And our ability to do that is going to be critical because we need to be able to stay on the field. And this is a game where our offense, scoring or not, needs to hang on to the football and win that time of possession because if you give it up, it's going to be a while maybe before you get it back with the tempo offense. And so we have to try to keep their offense on the sideline.